Hello YouTube, this is Joseph, and today I'm bringing you another deck tech. I present to you Karador, Ghost Chieftain. This is one of my favorite decks as he's just kind of a toolbox commander. He's great at recurring things from the graveyard. His card reads, Karador, Ghost Chieftain costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard, and during each of your turns you may cast 1 creature from your graveyard. It's important to note that you can only cast 1 creature from your graveyard per turn, and you still have to pay the converted mana cost, so that's something to be aware of. But he's just a great utility commander, and I love the Abzan colors, as it gives you access to some of the best spot removal, artifact and enchantment removal, and just really good creatures. So I thought I'd go back to the original format that I used in some of the first YouTube videos I've uploaded, more specifically the Prosh deck tech, just showing each individual card and kind of explaining what they do and how they benefit the overall ideas of the deck. So we're going to start off with the lands. I'm running 5 basic lands, 2 plains, 2 swamps, and a basic forest. It's kind of important for later because I do have Hermit Druid in the deck, not for the sake of just comboing off with him, but just as a way of getting cards into my graveyard. So having only 5 basic lands is pretty important for Hermit Druid. And I decided to organize all the lands by color order, so you'll see a series of lands that produce white and black, and then a series of lands that produce black and green, and then green and white. So I'm going pretty quickly here. You can just look at them as the video goes. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you as you view these cards. So this is one of my first lands that are very important. Riftstone Portal reads that as long as it's in your graveyard, all your lands can be tapped for either forest or plains. This is especially important for fixing my land, and it's really easy to get this card into your graveyard in the first place, so there's so many ways I'm milling cards out of my library. Now, Murmuring Bosk is another unique one because it has the keyword forest in its land type, so it can be searched out by different cards like fetch lands, and it kind of provides me all the colors that I need for the deck. Mosswort Bridge, I just like the ability to hide a creature away, and then once I get 10 power I can tap this and put that card right onto the battlefield. It's a great way to cheat some of the high converted mana cost cards onto the battlefield. Darkmoor Salvage is especially important because it has Dredge 2. It's another way of dredging, like getting cards into your discard pile, especially from a land base, because it doesn't take away other slots in your 99. Vault of the Archangel, just a fun utility card. Every once in a while I find it really relevant. High Market, it's kind of a sack outlet. Again, sometimes you just need to be able to sacrifice a creature so you can recur it from your graveyard. Again, to get the re-enter the battlefield abilities. Temple of the False God I feel is a staple. Now I'm running only 2 land destruction cards, Teutonic Edge and Strip Mine. They're there because, again, I can recur them from my graveyard, and often I'm able to play them and use them 2 or 3 times in the course of a game. Grasslands is one of my key fetch lands, same with Crozen Verge. I originally had some of the other fetch lands in the deck, but I took them out for the purpose of building a 4-color commander. The fetch lands are way more important in a 4-color commander than a 3-color commander, in my opinion. So now we have Cabal Coffers and Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. As I showed before with Riftstone Portal about making all my lands tap for forest or plains, this is now a way for all my lands to tap for swamp. So essentially, if I have those 2 cards, all my land can tap for any color I need at any given time. It's just the perfect color fixing. Now I'm running 3 lands that can tap for all 3 of my colors, and that's all the lands I'm running in the deck. There's a total of 37 lands. 37 is kind of the staple number I choose for all my decks. This next batch of cards are all about card draw. So Skullclamp works nicely because I'm constantly sacrificing creatures or getting creatures die or whatever, and this is just a good way to draw cards. It's a must-have in this deck. Fauna Shaman, again, it kind of tutors for the card you need and puts stuff into your discard pile. Sometimes you have a card like Ashen Rider, and you just need it in the graveyard so you can recur it with Animate Dead or something. And just being able to take that card out of your hand and discarding it into your graveyard to find something more relevant is a very handy ability. Phyrexian Arena, just for card draw. Eldritch Evolution. I like this one because a lot of my cards are at the 3 casting cost, 5 casting cost, and 7 casting cost range. So being able to jump those 2 converted mana cost slots, it really does allow me to get some key cards into play that I need at any given time. Birthing Pod, again, I stack the deck in a way so that Birthing Pod is relevant. There's a really nice curve of low casting cost to high casting cost. And I even included a couple 9 casting cost creatures because it is always fun to be able to reliably Birthing Pod Carador away back into the command zone to cast like Blazing Archon, which prevents my opponents from attacking me. Is a nice defensive card. Jared's Order searches for a creature and puts it in your hand and puts a creature into your graveyard. Does everything you want it to do. It's kind of like a double tutor spell. And then Death Reap Ritual. Again, a lot of creatures are dying. And this is also nice because when creatures die in my opponent's turns, it also lets me draw a card. So if I'm playing a 3-player game or 4-player game, I'm often drawing like 3 or 4 cards as the table goes around. And finally there's Sidisi. Instead of running something like Diabolic Tutor or Demonic Tutor, I chose to go for a creature tutor because it does everything the deck wants. It acts as a sack outlet to get rid of a creature so you can recur it later. It tutors for whatever card you need at the given time. And it's just a solid creature. I mean, a 4/6 with Death Touch often will trade with an opponent's creature. So it just gives you lots of card advantage. Just a great card. Now, these are the spells that allow me to search for cards, put them in my graveyard, and the like. And Tomb is just a staple for that. Alter Dementia as a sack outlet, as well as putting cards in my graveyard. Hermit Druid, as I mentioned before, is good for getting cards in my graveyard. Because I only have 5 basic lands in a 100-card deck, your odds are to probably mill yourself 10 to 20 cards, and that's enough to usually find some of the key pieces you need to win the game. I'm not doing any like crazy combos with him, so I think he's a very fair inclusion in my deck, but I know a lot of people have really bad stigma with him and hate Hermit Druid with a passion, so it's kind of a tough call. If you abuse him, he can be broken, but I think he's a pretty fair option. He's kind of like another Fauna Shaman for the deck. Light from the Loam, another way to recur lands from my discard pile. Hunting Grounds, this one's really fun. It's really easy for me to have 7 cards in my graveyard, and the ability to have Threshold is whenever my opponents play a spell, I can put a creature from my hand and put it right onto the battlefield. This is another way of kind of ramping myself and cheating creatures into play. Just very powerful. And this is an underrated card. It's like 50 cents to buy it and super cheap. I definitely would recommend putting this into any graveyard strategy if you can. And this is a card that's unique to Carador because a lot of the other graveyard decks I've seen are just black and green and they don't have access to white, so it's just a very good card. Buried Alive, similar to Entomb, search for creatures, put them in your graveyard. Stinkweed Imp, there for Dredge 5, and he kind of has a pseudo Death Touch ability, so when it does combat damage to a creature, you can destroy that creature. Jared, Golgari Leech Lord. This is one that I'm kind of on the fence about keeping in the deck, but it is a win condition in and of itself, because late in the game, I think I have 43 creatures in total in the deck, or 42, so there is potential for him to be huge, really powerful, and then for a total investment of 7 mana to be able to cast him for 4, sacrifice himself for 3, and do like 40 damage to every other player. He could just win you the game on the spot, but he's a really hard creature to cast on turn 4. so you most likely will just be trying to cheat him into play. But he's there as a sack outlet, as a big, strong creature. He's a 2/2 power, so he can be brought back with Reveillark. And he can also put your swamps and forests into your graveyard just to get him back into your hand. So he's just there for utility. And what graveyard deck would be a graveyard deck without Golgari Gravetroll? He is kind of the Grave King. Dredge 6, he's really powerful. He's just a staple card for this deck. So Animate Dead is just what it says. It animates the dead. It brings something back from your graveyard onto the battlefield with -1 attack, -0 defense. So I really like this card, and it's a great Sun Titan target if it ever gets removed. Safi. Again, there's some cool combos you can do with Safi, and she is there just to get things back from your graveyard. Victimize. It lets you take 2 creatures from your graveyard for the price of only sacrificing 1 single creature, and then you can cast that creature again from your graveyard with Carador's ability. So this is just such a powerful card for the deck. It's giving you lots of value. Necromancy, it's the same reason I have it as Animate Dead, another Grave Titan target, and you can play it at instant speed, so it's very handy. Eternal Witness gets cards back. Karmic Guide gets a creature back onto the battlefield. Reveillark can get 2 creatures with power 2 or less from your graveyard to play. And also what I like to note about about Reveillark and Karmic Guide is both of them have built-in ways they kind of put themselves into the graveyard. With Echo Cost and Evoke, they can both just die, so you can reuse the ability numerous times in the same turn. Living Death, this card just wins you the game. If it's late in the game and you have lots of creatures in the graveyard and your opponents don't, or even if they do, chances are they won't have as many cards in the graveyard as you. So you basically exile all the creatures on the battlefield and then return everything from the graveyard and put onto the battlefield for every player, and most likely you'll have the upper hand. So this usually wins you the game. I just wish there was a haste enabler in the deck. Don't have access to red, so that's a little bit of a challenge. You can't just have an instant attack after you do something like that. So then we have Sun Titan, gets things of 3 converted mana cost or less back from the graveyard. And Green Warden of Murasa, if I pronounce that correctly. This card is kind of like Eternal Witness, but 2 copies of it. And it's also nice because you can flicker this with Restoration Angel or other things. I mean, if you use its second ability of when it dies, you actually have to exile it to return a second card into your hand, but it still generates a lot of value, and I prefer having something like this creature over Regrowth because it is a creature, and I'm trying to keep all the abilities more creature focused so that the overall deck of it is more creature heavy opposed to instances or sorceries or the like. And then Rise from the Dark Realms. This is actually Liliana's like final ultimate form, just returning all creatures from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. This just wins you the game. It is a bit of a win more card, and to be honest, this is one of the cards that I thought about taking out. This would be a card that'd be fun to put into Prosh because Prosh is also sacrificing a lot of creatures, and this is kind of a high casting cost for this particular deck because usually you're investing almost all your mana in every turn you're playing, and this is more of a turn 20 win condition opposed to an early game win, but you never know. I still have it in the deck, so I've just never actually been able to win with this card. It just never came up in a relevant time. But let me know what you think about the card and whether I should keep it in this deck list. So now that you've already seen basically all the card draw, recursion, and ways of putting cards into my graveyard, that's like half the deck. That's kind of what the deck looks to do. I believe I have a total of about 30 cards invested to that side of the game, which is, yeah, exactly half the deck. Well, a third of the deck, I guess, but half the deck that isn't lands. So anyways, these are my accelerants for just being able to do the stuff that I want to do. So you got your classic Soul Ring. Sakura Tribe Elder, good to note that he can actually put himself in your graveyard. So not only is he searching out a basic land, he's also fueling Karador's reduced cost reduction by being in the graveyard. Burnish Chart, for the same reason, you can sacrifice himself and look for basic lands. Ashnod's Altar has the sack outlet. Yamavea Elder, again, you can sacrifice him and search out 2 basic lands. So you'll note that I have 5 basic lands in the deck, and the whole reason for that is because if you're playing Sakura Tribe Elder, Burnish Chart, and the Elder, you're basically searching out all 5 of your basic lands. So there might be good intentions for me to add 1 more basic land. If you want to recur them, you can easily run out of targets to search for. But this also makes it so that Hermit Druid is a lot more powerful. So it's kind of a give and a take. And then we have Solemn Simulacrum. Just searches out for basic lands and draws you a card. Just good value. And then Oracle of Maldea. Oracle of Maldea is just really good, and I think is a very important card, but this is a card that I don't know if it sees its full potential in this deck list. I think it might go better in some of the other decks I'm working with. But again, let me know what you think. Now these are the cards that are kind of just for fun and ways to protect myself. So, Cameo the False Hope is a fog on a stick, and same with Spore Frog. I like them because I've had a game where I was playing with 2 other people, and both of them had really strong board positions, and I was in a very weak position. But I had both of these on the field, and when one of them attacked me, I was able to, like, prevent all the damage, and then the next person would attack me, prevent all the damage. And then I would recur them out of the graveyard, and I could do it again. And I think there's about 5 or 6 turns in a row where I was just standing my ground. I was like a cockroach that was being stepped on and just wasn't dying. And before long, eventually I was able to just build up my mana base and recover, and then just end up winning the game because of these 2 creatures. So they're very powerful, and I think must have, and they're just really fun. Blood Artist, just a good source of life gain, as well as pinging your opponents for little bits of damage throughout the course of the game. Restoration Angel, I have a lot of enter the battlefield abilities, so this is just a solid card. The Evening Star, he's there mostly just to give me a lot of life. But again, this is a card that I wonder if it'd be better in Prosh, because Prosh has a bit of a sub-dragon theme, and this would make just as much sense in there, so I might still fool around with that particular card. I don't know how many games I've been down at like 6-7 life, and then I just cast this thing and go back up to 40. It basically reads like, enters the battlefield, gain 30 life. Hornet Queen, again, this is one that I kind of want to take out, but I feel it's necessary because I don't have any major token generators in the deck, and having 4 1/1 green insects with Death Touch and Flying is a really solid defense for you, and if you can flicker this with Restoration Angel, you're getting a lot of value. It's 2 power, 2 toughness, you can bring it back with Revelark. It just works so well with the deck, and it's kind of a hard choice. I really like it, but I think there might be something that would fit the deck better, but I'm just not sure what to replace it with. Blazing Archon, just so that your opponents can't attack you. I just like this card. Good defensive card. And then I do have Iona, which is a very douchey card. People don't like playing it, but in my opinion, most decks I play run 2 or 3 colors, or 4 colors now, and you know, limiting them 1 color of the whole deck usually is not enough to break them. And this is kind of a card that's in the deck, but you have to choose when to play it, because it's very political. If you're facing a monocolor deck, you could just win the game on the spot with it, but usually you want to target the color that's the most threatening to you. So, and who maybe is the strongest presence in the board or whatever, but it's kind of a tricky card. A lot of people hate it, but a lot of people love it, and that's kind of why I'm running also Blazing Archon, because If I want a Birthing Pod Carador away, I have two viable options to search for, and I'm thinking of putting in Void Willower as well. Maybe that would be a good choice instead of Hornet Queen. But Void Willower equally is annoying as Iona, but a little less oppressive, so yeah, those are my two 9-drops. Yeah, despite having Iona in the deck, you still want the game to be fun and fair, so first spot removal is Path to Exile. Pride Mage, he's there just get rid of artifacts and enchantments. Fleshbag Marauder, I just like him because he just makes every player sacrifice a creature. Reclamation Sage, destroys artifacts or enchantments. Harmonic Sliver, same thing. And Aura Shard, same thing. So I have a lot of ways to get rid of artifacts and enchantments, which is very important because I do have a lot of board wipes that get rid of creatures, but not necessarily artifacts or enchantments. Now, Skin Render is a unique one. I noticed that I didn't have a lot of 4-drop creatures in the deck. I have Golgari, Leech Lord, Restoration Angel, are the two main ones I remember right now, but Skill Render is another one that's kind of got like a lightning bolt on a stick, because it comes into play 3 -1/-1 counters. Even if it doesn't kill something, it would still weaken my opponent's creatures, and it's still helpful. And this is a great ability to recur, because you could kind of slowly attrition out a creature and kill them if you can recur this a few times. It's just a very powerful card. Acidic Slime, again, getting rid of artifact, enchantment, or land. Duplicant, this is a very special card for the deck, because Reveler can bring it back if it's 2 power, and it exiles your opponent's creature and makes a copy of it. So this can easily get rid of that Avacyn. It's colorless too, so it gets around a lot of these protection from all colors and like swords that often prevent you from targeting something. Like, this can get around a lot of really hard things to get around, so just such a good card. Angel of Despair comes into play, destroys target permanent. And Ashen Rider can exile target permanent as he comes into play and as he leaves play. And if you're doing that a few times in the course of the game, this card can often exile 4 or 6 cards in the course of the game, and just, it's such a powerful card. So Magister of Worth is a really fun card. It's a voting-based card where either players vote for Grace or Condemnation. If players vote for Grace, every player returns every creature from their graveyard onto the battlefield. If Condemnation gets more votes, she stays on the field and every other creature gets destroyed. So I really like this card because it does everything the deck wants to do: recur cards or wipe the board. And you'll note that the reason I have so many board wipes in the deck is, opposed to running cards like Grisly Salvage or something that just puts the top 5 cards into your graveyard, I would rather be running stuff like board wipes that actually affect my opponents as well. It just seems like it's a lot more just versatile and consistent. Part of the purpose of this deck is just to win me a game of attrition. Like, I'm kind of gaining a slight advantage as the game goes on, and the more turns you play with the Carador deck, the stronger the deck becomes, because there's more cards in your graveyard and your commander costs less, and you just become more powerful, more threatening. You have more resources than your opponent. So Carador is very much a long-term win condition. So then this is one of my favorite cards as well, Elshenorn. Just +2/+2 to all your creatures and -2/-2 to all your opponent's creatures. Must have. And then Butcher of Malakir. Similar card to Dictate of Erebos, just makes your opponent sacrifice creatures when your creatures die, or she dies. Hello YouTube, this is Joseph. Thanks for watching this deck tech video. Let me know what your thoughts are on Carador, Ghost Chieftain, what you think about just ways I can improve the deck or suggestions. Love to hear your comments in the comment section below. And what do you think of Commander 2016? What are you planning to do with the new commanders they have coming out? And I would love new subscribers, so click the subscribe button, click the like button. Helps my name get out, and yeah, just thanks for watching this video. Have a good week.